Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a moment where the world around you just kind of stops.
Hmm.
The crickets buzzing outside go silent, birdsong vanishes, time feels, well, warped, and there's this strange, undeniable pull like you're being drawn right out of your everyday life.
Yeah, that incredibly unsettling sensation. It's often described as this unnatural quietness or a
Hmm.
strange drawing feeling. And it's one of the most consistent things, really striking, that jumped out from the source material we're looking at today.
Exactly. And this isn't just theory, right? This deep dive is specifically into these extraordinary claims around UFO abductions. And we're using a very particular set of sources, primarily excerpts from The Watchers the Second by Raymond E. Fowler.
Right. And these sources, they go deep. They document the hypnotic regression sessions, the reported experiences of one main individual,
Mhm.
Betty Andreasson Luca, and some related accounts too, like her husband Bob's.
So, our mission here really is to guide you through this stuff, pull out the most striking details, the insights maybe that are contained in these documented experiences.
And it's important to say, right up front, the prologue in our sources makes this point clearly. Abduction accounts, they're not just in the tabloids anymore.
Not at all. Major publications, Washington Post magazine, Wall Street Journal, Harvard magazine, the Atlantic Monthly, they've given serious attention to these claims.
Plus, you've got studies like Dr. Thomas Bullard's comparative work back in '88. He looked at hundreds of reports, found these striking similarities, and argued, there are too many common threads to
Yeah.
just dismiss them all as hoaxes or fantasy.
The sources also kind of touch on this idea that maybe it's not new, that it could have been happening for decades, maybe even centuries, long before modern UFO sightings.
And a critical point they raise is how our usual ways of looking at reality, scientific, theological, philosophical, they often just filter this stuff out. Ignore it because it doesn't fit the model, like radar operators ignoring planes without transponders.
So think of us as your guides today, yeah? We're navigating this complex, often frankly bizarre material that you've shared. We're exploring the reported reality within these pages, not confirming, not denying, but looking closely at the specific details in these sessions. See what they might tell us.
Okay, so let's start right where these accounts often begin, with that weird environmental shift. The concept described in the sources as the Oz factor.
The Oz factor. I love that name for it. It's perfect, isn't it? Like stepping out of Kansas into somewhere else entirely.
Exactly.
The sources talk about time distortion, a sense of unreality, but the thing that keeps coming up is this quietness, a total absence of natural sound. No crickets, no frogs, just silence right before an alleged abduction starts.
Yeah, and the source material gives some vivid examples. Betty's experience in 1989, right before she heard those weird trees falling. She felt restless, that drawing feeling, and specifically noted how unnaturally quiet it got.
And later, describing an entity in her bedroom, she says, "It's so quiet here, and I just can't move."
Hmm. There's also the account from Jim Weiner from the Allagash case, which is referenced. Before seeing that sphere while sledding, he felt this intense pressure and noted everything. It's just real still. I don't hear anything.
So this consistent report of silence beforehand, it's a powerful detail. What do you think that suggests?
Well, it's a fascinating pattern, isn't it? The insight isn't just that it's quiet. It's the implication within the source that maybe this silence isn't natural. Maybe it's an effect tied to the phenomenon itself, setting the stage, perhaps, masking an arrival.
And Betty mentioned those falling trees right after the drawing feeling and the quiet. She specifically looked for answers about them later under hypnosis, tying them directly to this whole strange event.
Which leads us right into the next part of her 1989 reported experience under hypnosis, this journey that starts in a blue light.
Right, despite fighting it, that drawing feeling pulls her outside. And she sees this incredibly vivid light blue ball of light near the woods.
And then the completely bizarre sensation of being inside that blue light, floating.
What details really stand out for you there from that description?
Well, the source gets really specific. From inside the light, she can still see the trees, the ground. But she also saw something else, something anomalous. Clusters of tiny, different colored, very light pastel colored lights hanging in the trees.
And they weren't just hanging there. She said she saw them rolling down the tree trunks and just vanishing into the ground.
Yeah.
It's such a specific, almost whimsical, but really strange visual from the source. The insight there seems to be that the blue light is more than just transport. It might alter perception somehow, letting her see things normally invisible.
Exactly. And from this point, the sources describe her interacting with the small gray beings, the ones often called the Watchers. They reportedly knelt down, placed a hood of some kind over her head.
Ah, the hood. Wow, the description in the source is incredibly detailed for this. It had a hole, looked like clear glass or what. It clamped in, had sections, even looked like water bubbling in it.
Which is weird enough.
But the strangest part, she said she could breathe real good with it on, and even took away a headache she had.
Right, so it's not just some basic hood. It sounds like some kind of, I don't know, sophisticated biological interface. Or an environmental suit.
A complex piece of tech, yeah, integrated with her biology, removing discomfort. And the sources also say she was moved by these entities, not physically pulled or carried, but using their minds or eyes, telepathically compelling her movement.
So after this, the sources say they were taken to a place Betty had apparently visited before. This crystal forest.
Yeah, described as bizarre, almost like a fairyland, and possibly underground based on other accounts referenced in the source.
Her return visit in this session yielded some really unique details. A glass-like mountain, a tunnel, a large round ball hovering nearby.
Yeah.
And then this incredibly strange moment. She was wearing some kind of glass platform or shoes.
Yes, and they detached somehow, and she fell into what looked like water.
But it didn't act like water. The source says as soon as she fell through, it solidified right back into that same glass-like material the forest was made of.
Crazy. A reality where a liquid behaves like a solid when you disturb it.
And immediately after, these light beings reportedly showed up with instruments to repair the damage she caused by falling through.
Which adds another layer, doesn't it? A hierarchy of beings. And they seem to care about maintaining this strange environment.
Definitely. Following that, she describes being put inside something like a barrel thing that revolved. It felt warm, like it was drying her off. But then this really strange physical transformation happens.
The water on her body, just normal moisture, turned into sparkly crystals inside this barrel thing.
Sparkly crystals
Huh.
from her own body's moisture. That's one of those details that just sticks with you.
It really is.
And that blue ball of light from earlier, its function was apparently revealed in this crystal forest part. The Greys reportedly explained it was a record keeper of intelligence, constantly collecting knowledge everywhere, and that these things are all around us, just invisible to human eyes.
So the insight there is these lights, or balls of light, they might not just be vehicles or simple lights. They could be like ubiquitous data collection units, suggesting constant unseen monitoring of everything.
Exactly. So from this apparently underground or maybe alternate dimension place, the sources describe them moving towards a craft for travel.
Right. She entered a round metal-like craft, described as silvery, very shiny, like a mirror, and no visible door until one just opened.
And the smaller craft then took her to a very high place. She perceived it as outer space saw stars, scattered lights, dark outside, but light inside the smaller craft, their destination, docking with a huge mothership.
Ah, yes, the mothership. The description in the sources is pretty detailed. Long cylinder thing, lit up red at one end, lights around what looked like wheels.
And entering it was strange, too, through what seemed like a glass enclosure, and then something that opened like a steamer or, camera diaphragm. A sectioned opening that expanded and contracted.
Wow. And inside, the docking area was vast. 3 levels, indented berths for other crafts, pipes, stairs. And this is where she reportedly saw different kinds of entities.
Right, a clear distinction. There was a tall being, identified as an elder, white robe, pale skin, white hair, unusual looking but perceived as friendly, and significantly, he spoke audibly, unlike the Greys.
And the small Greys, the Watchers, are described again here, reinforcing that sense of them being stiff, rigid, communicating telepathically, those thin slit mouths.
But she also reported seeing something new. Old men in black robes being escorted somewhere, and each one was followed by small red balls of light.
Okay, now this next part from the sources. This introduces maybe one of the most disturbing, really startling concepts in the whole account. Biobics.
Yeah, biobics. Betty was initially confused by the term, but the elder reportedly explained this, shocking biological necessity.
Go on.
The small gray watcher's eyes. Apparently, they're ever-open eyes, constantly exposed to light. They actually burn out. They need replacement.
Oh, wow, okay. And the replacement eyes.
This is the really grotesque detail.
Yeah.
The sources say these replacements come from those red creatures Betty saw during a previous abduction back in 1967. These creatures, she was told, were being, farmed for their eyes, which apparently regenerates.
Farmed for their eyes. Good grief.
The sources describe Betty reportedly witnessing a procedure, an elder implanting these black eyes, taken from the red creatures, into a watcher's empty sockets.
And then that incredibly strange, almost sci-fi image, the elder touches the watcher's head, and Tiny pinpoints of light, different colored light up in the new eyes. Her reported reaction says it all. Ah, is this strange?
It is profoundly strange, and the explanation given by the elder, that the Watchers aren't really independent beings, they're remote imaging surrogates for the elders, connected by bioelectric mind projections.
So they do the terrestrial tasks, and the elders can effectively see through their eyes, like biological drones.
That's the implication. They even used a specific machine, like a chair with a glass hood, during this Biobics process. The insight here, disturbing as it is, paints this picture of the Greys as biological extensions of the elders, maintained through a process that sounds horrifyingly like, well, organic harvesting and technical integration.
They're farming those little red beings. Her reaction really captures that unsettling feeling.
Definitely. So moving on from the Biobics, Betty reportedly saw that procession again, the old men in black robes being led away, followed by those small red balls of light. Then she entered another room, but get this, in a way that defied physics, reportedly walking right through the door, which looked just like a picture of a door.
Through a picture of a door.
Okay.
And inside.
She met another tall elder. She asked if there were female entities there, and the elder's reply, according to the sources, was very direct. No, we are neither male or female here.
Interesting.
Then he asked her if she remembered her blessing.
But she didn't consciously remember, right?
Right, so she was shown something. Through a light ball that opened up like a screen, presenting what she described as a three-dimensional movie.
And what she saw was a scene from her own past, a church in Ashburnham, Massachusetts.
Yeah, and the detail is amazing. She saw herself, her mother, her father, the minister, his wife, people in the audience. But she also saw something the humans in the scene couldn't see. Light around different people and around the tall beings. Beings who were apparently invisible to everyone else in her memory.
Wow. And the scene itself.
It reportedly showed the minister's wife coming to Betty, putting hands on her head, speaking in tongues, and the elder, present in the vision, reportedly influenced the minister, who then interpreted the message as, "Thou shalt be blessed above women."
She also noted seeing black surrounding one man in the audience, a real contrast to the light.
And this connects directly back to a conscious memory Betty had before hypnosis. She remembered going to a church meeting, standing up, giving testimony, getting that prophecy. As she recounted it after hypnosis, she said, "Weird, huh? This thing gets more and more weird."
Yeah. The insight here feels like this strange blending of these external, high-tech, or paranormal events with deeply personal, even spiritual moments from her own life, suggesting some kind of entanglement, maybe, between the phenomenon and human experience, or even destiny.
It certainly seems to point that way. The sources then describe the next scene aboard the craft. It sounds like some kind of mystical rite or ceremony. 3 elders reportedly formed a triangle within a circular design, stretched out their hands, bowed their heads.
And a ball of light formed between them, changing color, light blue to lavender, something circling inside it.
Yeah, and one elder apparently had balls, tiny balls of light that he had like rings on his fingers.
Rings made of light balls.
Okay. Then a human-like man with light around him approached and selected some of these tiny light balls, which then coalesced into one small, dense ball. At one point, Betty found herself holding the large purple ball of light that had formed earlier.
And there was that moment of very human reluctance. She had to give this beautiful purple ball to a gray being and reportedly questioned it, like, why do I have to give this up? Adds an emotional touch to it all.
It does. Then they reportedly approached an area of intense bright light, referred to in the sources as the Great Door. And this led to what's maybe the most transformative moment described.
As they ran towards this light, something incredible supposedly happened. The elder changed into a white light being, the gray being changed into a light blue one, and Betty herself changed into a golden-colored light.
Wow. And her experience within that light. The sources describe it as pure ecstasy. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, there's such love. Oh, there's such peace. Feeling engulfed in light and blending into that light.
But then she was pulled back, reportedly against her will. Oh, I don't want to go back. I want to stay.
Yeah, feeling this strong sense that she had to return for others so that they too will see, will understand and know. Suggests submission, maybe? Tied to her experiences.
They changed back into physical forms outside the light, and she reported hearing singing and seeing the balls of light are just like dancing and making song or music.
The sources also briefly mention her prior encounter back in 1950 with what she called the One, noting how hard it was for her to describe that ultimate experience. It hints that this immersion in light might be related. The insight here really feels like a suggestion of a higher dimension, maybe spiritual and ultimate reality these beings can access, transforming them into pure light.
And it's clear from the sources these weren't just one-off events in Betty's life, were they? The accounts really highlight the recurrent nature of these encounters. There are references to studies showing patterns of return visits.
Definitely. There's that 1988 Southington drive-in incident mentioned. A woman reportedly took their picture with a bright flash, similar to an earlier laundromat incident, then a loud thud on the back of their car.
Right, followed by Bob's really unusual apathy and a period of missing time like 45 to 60 minutes, reportedly.
The sources speculate, could the thud have been a tracking device? Was Bob's apathy maybe some kind of alien influence to make an abduction easier?
Then, January 1989, there's the bedroom incident that happened right before the abduction we've been mostly detailing. Seeing an octopus-like thing float through the window, a bright flash falling asleep.
And that sequence reportedly led directly into that drawing feeling and the encounter by the trees we discussed earlier.
The beginning of that abduction involves reportedly writing quickly in a blue machine with a gray being. When they arrive, they meet elders who, importantly, speak audibly again, not like the silent grays.
And here's another really startling detail from the source, one that brings the phenomenon into the next generation. Betty sees her daughter, Becky, in another room.
And she's told Becky's being trained in the letters since she was a child and that her time is coming to show others those letters.
Wow, that strongly suggests this is intergenerational, doesn't it? Within this family. The daughter being trained or groomed for some purpose since childhood.
She's then taken to this rounded room, two swirling blue light cylinders with something or someone inside them, a glass-like table, thin screens described like book pages.
The next room is described as pie-shaped. There's a curved structure, ceiling to floor, that reportedly splits open with this intensely bright white light. And this leads to, well, arguably the most physically shocking moment reported in this whole sequence.
She sees a naked female lying there, like she is, and dead, just lying there so still. And then the terrifying realization, that's me lying there.
Chilling. She's then reportedly told to enter your form, and she steps back into her physical body.
The immediate feeling described is just extreme exhaustion.
Heaviness.
Yes. So tired and heavy, exhausted.
The elder reportedly explains this is part of the process of preparation, commends her for being humble and calm, and really stresses she must remain calm, because no matter what, you must remain calm.
Preparation for what, though?
It's not explicitly stated, but the context implies preparation for future interactions or tasks. The elder also reportedly reiterates that point about the watchers being remote imaging surrogates, connected via bioelectric mind projections for terrestrial tasks. She's told her weakness will pass, and she has to go back.
And the process of returning to her bed. The sources describe stepping on a platform, lights coming down, something whooshing down around her, bright light, and suddenly she's back in bed.
And as the sources note, memory loss often follows these returns, except for fragments like that drawing feeling or the sound of the trees. The source posits this memory loss could be an alien tactic, concealing their intervention.
And the fact that their children are involved, especially Becky's reported training revealed in her own sessions, it just underscores the deep, ongoing nature of these alleged experiences for the whole family. The insight feels like it touches on potential physical manipulation, maybe even substitution, combined with memory management and intergenerational targeting.
It's a lot. Finally, the sources shift focus a bit. They delve into insights gained from Bob Luca's hypnotic session back in 1978 when he was reportedly with the elders. This part is less about the physical events, more about profound teachings.
Right, this part presents these complex ideas reportedly given to Bob, not through words, but as an understanding that was just implanted in his mind.
Yeah, just given. He reportedly understood his own spiritual stage of development, and that Betty was what they called a light person.
And the teachings themselves covered these huge, almost cosmic concepts, like physical death isn't the end, the spirit doesn't die.
Existence is presented as this never-ending process of advancing through stages, explicitly compared to a long learning process. Life is stages, like a never-ending school.
But human minds, according to this teaching, can't fully grasp the whole process or the endlessness of the universe.
Right. And the spirit has reportedly existed in different bodies at different times, implying reincarnation, though revisiting past lives is apparently difficult because of the trauma of the death process.
And the future. It was told it's not for humans to know, only revealed by elders when it's deemed proper, often as personal warnings for people perceived to have some kind of destiny.
A really central teaching here is this idea of constant universal monitoring. Everyone is constantly being monitored via their spirit, not through technology.
Mm.
Your life, actions, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all recorded.
Wow. And this recording, according to the sources, is what determines your advancement, future steps, what teaching you need, even the hardships you face for understanding. It presents life as this evaluated process.
It goes on to say that life is wonderfully fair. Perceived unfairness, like a child dying or someone getting sick, that's supposedly misunderstood from our perspective.
How
For a
so?
child's death means they've advanced, like skipping a grade. Sickness, injury, those are tests of faith, and how you react is recorded for your spiritual advancement. It's
Yeah.
certainly a challenging way to reframe human suffering.
And then there's that deeply controversial idea presented in the sources: evil serves a necessary purpose.
Yeah. Without detrimental people, the advanced can't be tested. Sorrow and suffering are needed for advancement. It's reportedly part of the system, I guess you could say, the order of things. It assigns a purpose to suffering and conflict itself.
These distressing times, they're expected to increase with population, greed, conflict, though evil will eventually be wiped away, just not soon. Growth continues on further planes, implying existence beyond what we know.
And humanity, according to this teaching, not spiritually advanced. Our technology has outpaced our spirituality, leading to harmful creations. Spiritual growth is presented as the critical need.
Even animals fit into this cosmic picture in surprising ways. Harming them will count. They apparently exist on multiple planes but don't evolve spiritually like humans do.
The spirit itself is described as the ultimate creation. It can't be harmed or improved in its essence, only advance and grow, getting closer to the Creator.
And the Creator cannot be defined or comprehended by the human mind. That's the ultimate goal, getting closer.
The sources wrap up this section by summarizing the connection seemingly made by these intelligences.
Hmm.
They might come from where we are going. And that quote, death, in essence, is the ultimate abduction experience.
Ooh. The insight there feels like this comprehensive, though demanding, spiritual and cosmic philosophy layered right onto all the strange physical and biological stuff. It suggests the phenomenon might involve beings operating from a dimension or state beyond our mortality, viewing life and death through this radically different lens of spiritual progress.
Absolutely.
So, what does this all mean for you listening? We've journeyed through an account that is, I mean, by any measure, just mind-bendingly strange. We've heard descriptions of bizarre biological procedure, physics-defying travel, multidimensional transformations, and right alongside it received these profound, almost theological teachings on life, death, suffering, the cosmos, all documented through hypnotic regression in these sources.
Yeah, these accounts, they really force you to consider the implications. Material that blends stuff that sounds like advanced tech with things that sound like, well, paraphysics, spirituality, and this hidden, maybe universal system of monitoring and growth.
It leaves you with a lot to ponder, doesn't it? If these accounts hold even a sliver of truth about reality as these intelligences perceive it, what does it mean to live a life where every action, thought, feeling is potentially being recorded for your spiritual advancement?
What's the purpose of the suffering and challenges you face if they're actually part of some necessary system for growth?
And what does it suggest about our current models of reality if experiences like these, documented through recall and hypnosis, point to a universe that's far more complex, interconnected, and maybe intentionally guided than we usually imagine?
The very nature of our existence, as described in these sources, could be this continuous, monitored journey towards an ultimate, maybe incomprehensible creator.
It's a powerful and yet deeply provocative set of ideas to sit with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into some truly extraordinary source material.